Let me share my screen. Okay, the Han Dynasty. So we're going to continue to talk about the Han Dynasty. The Han Dynasty is, we talked about it the last time. This empire, this second empire that was established in China after the Qing, lasted for 400 years, from roughly 202 BCE to 200 AD. So 400 years, right? So it's basically this the time span is equivalent for sort of overlaps with the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire a little bit, right? And very successful. This empire is very successful. I mean, think about the 400 years of rule. Most of the time, Chinese people enjoy peace, order, and the prosperity. But there are civil wars, there are inner strifes, there are natural disasters, floods and droughts. All these, peasant rebellion eventually happened later, and then also a little bit of, war with the foreigners, especially the nomadic peoples, the Hana or the Xiongnu people in the north, right? So the Han Dynasty have witnessed all these, but it still survived 400 years. The Han Dynasty, the question I want to ask is this dynasty a result or a creator or producer of ideas? Well, to a certain degree, it is a result of ideas, right? Because Han Empire inherited a lot of institutional legacies, legal legacies from the Qing Empire. Okay, all the laws, many laws were inherited from the Qing, right? By the Han. So yeah, it is a result of ideas. And then starting from Emperor Wudi's time, Confucianism was adopted as the official ideology. And this sort of set a model or precedent for all following Chinese dynasties. Okay, so starting from Emperor Wudi's reign period, all later Chinese dynasties all basically respected Confucianism as the official ideology. But the kind of so in this sense, Han Empire is a result of ideas. It's ideas of legalism and Confucianism. So you may ask this. I mean, you may make this argument, right? For example, final project, you may make this argument saying, yeah, the Han Dynasty is a result of a combination of legalism and Confucianism. Yeah, these two isms are like the two legs of this empire walking forward. Okay, but these two isms play different roles, as we said before. Legalism is the core of the inner structure of the whole empire, but Confucianism is the outside propaganda. Okay, Confucianism is the propaganda that the empire tried to inculcate its own people, to educate everyone, to train scholar officials, to decorate and to justify the legitimacy of the emperor's rule, right? So, mandate of heaven. Again, it was heavily used by the Han Empire to justify its own rule. This is a typical Confucian tradition, right? The Han Empire, we know that Han Empire was created by this commoner, Liu Bang, right? He was not a nobleman. So he needed an ideology or theory to justify its rule. So Confucianism provided just that kind of ideology that the emperors needed to justify their rule. So the idea is, I mean, just like a modern America use democracy to justify its rule, or Maoist China used communism to justify its rule, Han Empire used Confucianism to justify its rule. Okay, but not everything is Confucian. Okay, a lot of laws, a lot of institutions were actually inherited from the Qing. So you may say this empire in its inner core is illegalist, but on the outside, in terms of propaganda, in terms of legitimacy, it's a Confucianism. Okay, well, this is just like say Maoist China. On the outside, everybody is talking about Karl Marx, right? This communism imported from Europe, but in its inner core, we actually see a lot of legalism, even in Maoist China in 20th century. Okay, a lot of the institutions are actually inherited from Lord of Shang. Yeah, for example, the nuclear family policies, the crackdown of all social forces that may pose challenges to the state power, right? Unchallenged supreme rule of the ultimate ruler, right? Although in this case, in Mao's China, it's not called emperor anymore. It's called Chairman Mao. But you see that it's legalist. There's a legalist elements in its core, right? So that's our new empire, okay, Han Empire. All right. So next, I want to talk about frontier a little bit. So this is a garrison. This is actually a garrison from 2,000 years ago, built on the desert by the Han Chinese. It was a part of the whole Great Wall system. The Great Wall. If you look at the map, see this line. See this line. This shows the Great Wall. This is the position of the Great Wall. It's built in the north, right? The first emperor of Qing connected all these old frontier walls built by the northern warring states, and then Han Empire continued to build the Great Wall of China. The reason they had to build this wall is to fend off against the nomadic people, Xiongnu people or Hana. Actually, the wall did not really block the nomadic peoples from coming to China. There's no way they can actually block it because it's so easy to just demolish the wall on a certain place and just rush in. The main purpose of the Great Wall of China is an alert system. Okay, so for the garrisons, there are garrisons. There's one garrison like every 10 miles, maybe 5 miles or something. So if one part of the Great Wall is attacked by the enemy, then the soldiers would let up a torch or a pile of fire on a garrison, on a watchtower, and then when other guards on the nearby watchtowers see this, they're gonna do the same thing. So very quickly the message is gonna send to the capital, telling the emperor that the enemies are coming. So the emperor is gonna do some preparation. Actually, in the Disney cartoon Mulan, the first, if I have watched that movie, there is a scene of how this watchtower system is used as an alert system to convey a message that enemies are coming. So that's how it goes. So when it comes to Wudi's time, China, after 60 years of the Taoist Huanglao policies being implemented, the state has accumulated a lot of wealth. People became rich, and the army is growing. China has enjoyed 60 years of peace and order. The state has accumulated a lot of grains as a reserve. So Emperor Wudi wanted to launch wars. This is almost inevitable for Chinese rulers. Whenever they're powerful, they always want to think of a military expansion, right? So Wudi invaded Vietnam and took northern Vietnam, and he also invaded northern Korea. If we look at the map, you can see how far the Chinese pushed into northern Vietnam, and they also pushed into North Korea. And then Emperor Wudi wanted to defeat the Xiongnu people in the north. But the terrain in northern China is Gobi Desert. Gobi Desert. Let me show you one example. Gobi Desert is just like this. Okay, Gobi Desert. Okay, this is not Gobi Desert. Yeah. This is like Gobi Desert. Okay. Yeah, only the camels and horses are needed to cross the desert. So in order to defeat the Xiongnu people who allegedly raided Chinese territory, sometimes they raided Chinese territories, especially when climate is terrible. When there's an extremely cold winter, the Xiongnu people they're like Mongols. They're like Mongols. They raise horses, lamb, cows, and they move around in search for a better grassland to graze their herds. So if the winter is very cold, their herds are dying, horses are dying. In that case, they're gonna be pushed towards the south and to penetrate into agricultural area across the Great Wall of China to raid the agricultural towns. Okay, the Chinese towns and cities. Sometimes they do that, but mostly because they are pressured by climate. But Emperor Wudi did not like this. Okay, Emperor Wudi think China is powerful, so he wanted all China's neighbors to submit to China. That's the idea. Remember, from the Zhou dynasty, as early as 3,000 years ago, the idea is that there is only one king, that is Zhou king in China, and he's a son of heaven. So the Han emperors, they follow this idea. Okay, they thought themselves, they consider themselves as the son of heaven. Okay, the son of heaven. So there is no match for Chinese emperors in the known civilization. Okay, Korean king, Vietnamese king, Xiongnu, Chanyu is the name for Xiongnu's leader. All these, rulers surrounding China must submit to the Chinese son of heaven. But that's the idea. Okay, there is no such thing like an equivalent, equality, equal status in international community. There's no such thing in the Han Empire imperial system. So Wudi wanted to bring Xiongnu people down to submission. Okay, he wanted the Xiongnu, just like a Korean king or the Vietnamese rulers, to pay a tribute. This is, sometimes this is called a tribute system. Okay, tribute system. What it means is that in the old Chinese international order, we're talking about before 20th century. Okay, before 20th century, for the past 2,000 years, the Chinese, their idea of an international order is called a tribute system. There is, in the universe, there is only one legitimate ruler in the cosmos, in the universe. That is the son of heaven, the Chinese emperor. And all the other kings, rulers, tribal leaders, chiefs, they are going to submit to the Chinese emperor. But how? Well, by paying tribute. This is why this system is called a tribute system. Yeah, the Korean king is going to pay, I don't know, some kind of local horses, local specialties like a fans or ginseng, or whatever, other local specialties. The Vietnamese king would do the same thing. They would contribute the local, I don't know, pearls, spices, all these local products as a symbolic submission. Okay, the idea is to submit symbolically. They're going to send the tributes by a emissary group, employee, diplomats will travel all the way to Chang'an, the capital of the Han Empire, to kowtow to the Han Emperor and give him the tribute, pay the tribute, and then the Emperor normally would pay back the diplomats with even more handsome rewards. But this is not considered. This is actually a trade, but this is not called a trade in official Chinese historiography or documents. This is called tribute from the local kings and the rewards by the Chinese emperor. This system has going on for 2,000 years until in like late 18th century or early 19th century, when Europeans came to China. They eventually they had a conflict with the Chinese emperors. Okay, when Europeans eventually went to China, they brought over the European idea of equal status of nation state in the international order. So, for example, the British diplomats in 1790s, Lord Macartney refused to kowtow to the Chinese emperor. So this created a problem. Anyway, but that's a different story. So back to Han Dynasty. So when Wudi believed China can accumulate a lot of wealth and power, he wanted to conquer all these neighboring tribes or peoples. So Xiongnu is one of them, and Xiongnu is very powerful. But in order to defeat the Xiongnu nomadic cavalry, you need a cavalry too, right? Chinese need to build a cavalry. But China don't have a cavalry. Okay, the Han Empire most of their soldiers are footed soldiers. So they wanted horses. Okay, there are two kinds of horses in the world, by the way. One is Arabian horses like this, they're tall, with longer legs, longer necks. The other kind of a horse is the Mongolian horses. Mongolian horses are smaller. They have a shorter neck, bigger head, shorter legs, but they're very sturdy. These two different kinds of horses, they have different characters. The Arabian horses are the horses you see in most equestrian demonstration or races, right? They're fast, but they don't have stamina. They're pretty hard to maintain. But the Mongolian horses, although they're not very fast, they're short and smaller, but they're very, very heavy duty. Okay, they could go for like days without eating. Okay, so very, very heavy duty. The Mongols, 1,000 years later, 1,500 years later than Han Dynasty, riding on Mongolian horses, conquered entire Eurasia, almost the entire Eurasia, pushed all the way to Vienna. Okay, so that's what happened later. The Xiongnu people were the ancestors of the Mongols. They're the ancestors of Mongols. Okay, they live in the same location, Mongol Gobi Desert. So they ride horses. They're very fast. Any one of a Xiongnu's soldier, every one of Xiongnu's soldiers is a good archer, a good martial artist, because they got the training, since they're very young. So Emperor Wu Di wanted to, in order to defeat Xiongnu, he first had to build a Chinese cavalry to have Chinese horses. Okay, but the best horses, as Wu Di heard about it, is from the place between Mongolia and Arabia, that is Central Asia. Okay, in Central Asia, there's a hybrid horse that is the hybrid of both Mongolian horses and Arabian horses. So they're very fast, but also have amazing stamina. Okay, this kind of horses are still there in today's Central Asia, in Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. Okay, so Wu Di 2,000 years ago wanted to get this hybrid horse in today's Afghanistan. So Wu Di first sent diplomats to Afghanistan. 2,000 years ago, the ancient kingdom in Afghanistan is called Fergana Kingdom. Okay, so the Chinese went all the way to Afghanistan. Okay, they brought the emperor's order, and they brought a gold horse, a horse made of pure gold. And the Chinese gave that to the Fergana Afghanistan king. And they said, we want to trade for just one of your best horses, okay? And we're going to give you this gold horse statue. Well, the Fergana king, the Afghanistan king, did not want to give Chinese horses because he didn't know where China is. China is so far away, right? Yeah. So the Afghanistan king did not give Chinese the horse. And then the Chinese diplomat, his name is Cheling, he was angry. So he smashed the golden statue of horses in the Afghanistan king's court into pieces. He just smashed the statue into pieces because he didn't finish his job, right? He didn't get one real horse by trading. So he smashed the golden horse. And then they brought the pieces of the golden horse back to China. But when they were leaving Afghanistan, they were stopped by the Afghanistan king, and the Chinese diplomats were killed. And then the Fergana or Afghanistan king took the broken pieces of the golden horse. The Chinese did not get anything, and they lost the golden horse. So when Emperor Wu Di heard about this, he was angry. So he launched this first expedition to attack Afghanistan. But think about it, how far it is, 2,000 miles. And all the soldiers had to get there by foot. This is, it's amazing that Emperor Wu Di launched such an expedition. The first expedition consisted of 30,000 Chinese troops, and they crossed the whole. They went through the route that is called today the Silk Road. They crossed this corridor and they entered the Taklamakan Desert, which is here. It took them months to finally cross the whole desert. A lot of people died during the whole process. And then when they finally reached Afghanistan, they found out that they have lost a lot of troops. They cannot launch any attack. So the Chinese general had to return back. So the first expedition actually failed. But when they reached the garrison near the Great Wall, the emperor sent an order to the general saying, "You didn't finish your job, so don't come back. I will not open the garrison gate for you, allow you to come into China." So the general said, "Okay, so you want me to go back to Afghanistan?" The emperor said, "Yes." And then the general said, "Yeah, okay, all right, I can go back, but I need more troops, and this time I need 100,000 troops and 100,000 horses, 100,000 oxes, all these supplies." The emperor said, "No problem." So, and then so Emperor Wudi gave the general all these supplies, and then this time the general's name is Li Guangli. General Li Guangli brought all these new supplies, reinforcements, and then he turned back to Afghanistan. This time they prepared it better, and they crossed the desert again, and then finally reached Afghanistan. And then once they got there, they launched attack on the Fergana Kingdom. Okay, well, the Chinese were certainly outnumbered the Afghanistan local army, so they were just about to take the capital city of the Fergana Kingdom. At that time, there was a coup d'état that happened. The younger brother of the Afghanistan king launched a mutiny. He killed the king, his brother, and then he gave his head to the Chinese. So the Chinese got what they wanted. So the Chinese just stopped attacking the Afghanistan capital. And then the Chinese General Li Guangli said, "Okay, last time we wanted just one horse, and we wanted to trade the one horse with one golden horse. You didn't want to do that. Now, because we're going to conquer you, before we conquer you, we want 3,000 horses. Just give us the 3,000 horses, and we're going to go. You won't see us again. You won't see us again." Okay. So the new Afghanistan king gave the Chinese 3,000 horses. And then the Chinese also brought all these new plants from Central Asia as food for the horses back to China. So this expedition certainly facilitated some kind of cultural exchanges. Okay, so new crops, new ideas, new species, new knowledge was brought back to China about the so-called Western region. Chinese call the whole West land Xiyu. It simply means the Western region. Okay, so that's the expedition, and then with the new breed of horses, well, this is a horse statue we discovered from a Han period tomb. This is certainly not the golden horse that the Chinese brought to Afghanistan, because that one was smashed. But this shows the Chinese sort of how Chinese like Han Chinese like horses. Yeah, this is probably this statue was probably made based on one of the so-called Afghanistan horses that the Chinese brought from Central Asia. Yeah, Chinese called those horses heavenly horses. And then with those heavenly horses, they built a huge cavalry, and eventually they defeated the Shunnu people. But after Emperor Wudi passed away, all these expeditions against Afghanistan, against the Shunnu, pretty much deplored, emptied the treasury, used all the money, okay? Because wars are very, very expensive. Yeah, for one expedition to Afghanistan, it could easily took 100,000 horses, 100,000 oxes, and then equal number of troops who could die on the journey. Okay, it's very, very dangerous, very, very expensive. So after Wudi passed away, the state is in short of money. Okay, so this is the background. All these wars and stories about Afghanistan is just a context of the real story we're going to talk about today. The real story is after Wudi passed away, the state is in short of money. In order to get more money, for an agrarian society, for an agricultural civilization, how do you get more money? In addition to imposing taxes on your own people, if you raise taxes, people will complain. People won't like it. They may launch a rebellion. The state may encounter a lot of resistance if they raise tax. So how could emperor get some extra money? Well, this is when the Prime Minister Sang Hongyang figured out a new idea. The idea is state capitalism, or you can call it socialism. Actually, I mean, in the ancient China, these two are the same thing. Okay, the state would turn into a company that uses political power to monopolize the whole market. So this is how Prime Minister Sang Hongyang, his idea, his new policy is that he wanted to take away the privileges that used to be enjoyed by private merchants to trade salt, iron, and alcohol. Only state can trade these most lucrative, profitable commodities. That's the idea. Okay. So before he tried to launch this new policy, this is socialist policies, right? He had this meeting. So this week, you read this text, Yan Tielun, the Discourses on Salt and Iron. This is a record of a court debate of whether the state should monopolize the right to trade these commodities. Okay, the state conference or state meeting was held for many days. Sang Hongyang, the prime minister or the grand counselor, represents the state, and his opinion is that state should have more socialism. Okay, because the state, and his argument is simple. His argument is that the state needs to fight against the Xiongnu, right? Yeah, the state's national defense, basically national security, overrides Adam Smith kind of economic rules. Okay, state must regulate the free market because state needs more money to help with national defense. Okay, the war with the Xiongnu is more urgent. That's the argument he's making. Okay, but there's objection. Okay, there's a counter argument. The counter argument at the meeting were held by the Confucian literati. Literati means scholars. Okay, the Confucian scholars, they are the talented students or scholars, representing some local societies. They're recommended to the capital by local society, and then these scholars study at the National Academy, Taishu. Okay, so they represent some kind of local voices. And then at the court meeting, the Confucian scholars, they argued against Sang Hongyang, the prime minister's idea. Okay, and the Confucian literati's idea is that no, the state should not monopolize trades of all these commodities, because a state's role is not to compete with the people. Okay, when the state is taking away the right to trade these commodities, then people's profits are taken away by the state. Basically, the state becomes the richest company that is the only monopoly on the market. Of course, it's making huge money, right? Just like basically, think about all these socialist countries in 20th century. Whenever you nationalize a company, like an oil company, I don't know, a trading company, then of course all the profits go to the state, right? And then the state-run companies are always corrupt and inefficient. Okay, it may not be that corrupt, but it's definitely not inefficient, definitely not very efficient compared to private companies. This is always the rule. So that's the Confucian scholars' idea. So very interestingly, so in this debate, Confucian scholars, they almost took the position or stance of Adam Smith. Of course, Adam Smith only appeared in history, centuries later, but the ideas were already there. Okay, the Confucian scholars believe that the government should be small. Okay, it shouldn't be just a referee of the market or society. It cannot be a player of the market itself, because when referee becomes a player of the game, then of course all the profits will go to this referee plus player, right? In this case, it's the government. So government's power should be limited to a certain degree, and the government should leave the market to run by itself. So in this case, the Confucian scholars are almost echoing the Huanglao Taoist political theory that was implemented in China right before this time period. Okay, so quite interestingly, you see this combination of Huanglao Taoism and the Confucian scholars and the Confucianism. So in other words, Confucianism is also evolving, right? In Han Dynasty, this is, during this time period after Wu Di's reign, hundreds of years have passed, 400 years have passed since Confucius' time. So Confucianism itself has also experienced a lot of changes, a lot of evolution, right? The first Confucianism got merged with the legalism, and then in this case, it's sort of having Confucianism is also having an interesting exchange with the Huanglao Taoism, as we see from the discourse on Southern Iron, right? So Confucian scholars are arguing against the expansion of the state power. Okay, so that's the basically this what this debate is about. So Yan Tielun, the Discourse on Southern Iron, is a very interesting primary source that you have read this semester. Many interesting questions that can be asked about this documents. So now let's have a discussion. So you have read the Discourse on Southern Iron. Who can give us a quick summary of the text? Hello? Can you guys still hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can. We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, let me ask you this question. So, okay, Dustin.
I think Dustin, yeah.
Oh, Dustin, go ahead, please.
I guess a quick summary would be that, as you said, the Lord Grand Secretary was arguing that in the benefit of the defense of the frontier and border towns, the state needs to monopolize the salt, iron, and alcohol markets for their protection, right? So, for the benefit of the people, right, was their argument. But then the literary, right, basically said that the role of the government is not to instill like greed and wickedness in the people by competing with them.
Yes.
So they're just there to be benevolent and to show righteousness and what have you, right? Be a morally virtuous ideal, and not meddle in the affairs of the market. So yeah.
Yeah, very good job. Yeah, that's a perfect summary. Thank you, Dustin. So next question is, whose argument do you agree with? Which side do you think is more convincing and more persuasive, and why?
I think that the literari have a point to be made because, as they explain that when the government does meddle in the affairs of the market, it can, make people, more greedy and, hoard their money and whatnot, or whatever they're using for currency, which will, just weaken the market overall. It turns it more complex from the simple and natural way it runs, which kind of ruins the economy.
Good.
Mostly who I agree with. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Thank you, Dustin. Yeah. Good. Adriana?
Dustin kind of said what I wanted to say, which is good. But yeah, I think it's if you want to be unbiased about it, it's difficult to make the decision because when they meddled in the affairs, then it seemingly gave people a reason to do more and try to strive for like better things and stuff, which I think is like the goal of capitalism, is like to give you a reason to go to work. um, but the literati are like, we didn't need a reason. We were happy like with our lives and it was simple. And now people are like pining after these extravagant things that they don't need. I think one of the things that it said was like they're setting out traps to like trap elephants and rhinoceri and stuff, I'm assuming for their tusks.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, why do you need that? And it definitely was coming from like a, yeah, definitely think the literati were coming from a more of like a humanistic like nature aspect. And
Mm-hmm.
then the legal, well, I forgot the name, but the other side were arguing towards like, but this gives people a better purpose.
Yeah, the Lord Grand Secretary in this case. I mean,
Right,
I
thank you.
called
Yeah.
it. I called him a Prime Minister, Sang Hongyang. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
Let's.
my take on it.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Very good point.
Thank
Very
you.
good point. Okay. So we got 2 votes for the literati, the Confucian literati, against the Grand Secretary or the Prime Minister. How does the rest of the class think? Do you all agree with the Adriana and Dustin? Angela.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I also agree with Adriana and Dustin. I take the side of the literati. I think that the core of the debate in the discourses on Salt and Iron revolves around basically like we see it's almost like the legalists versus the Confucians. That's the kind of how I took each side of the debate to represent. And with the legalists, we see, you know, there's this removal of morality and cultivating, and it's all about wealth and profit and making things. And the literati make a couple of points in the text about how government being focused on merchants who don't make necessary things. There's this idea of necessity, and I going back to the simplicity of just having what we need and taking care of our communities, cultivating the land. It removes all of these extravagant things that we think we desire that really just lead to, as the literati put it, further greed and selfishness. And so I agree with their point that the most successful government, I think, would set an example for those virtues for the people, and that would spread throughout the state.
Very good point. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Angela. Yeah. So Angela argues that at the core of the debate is the conflict between legalist ideas and Confucian ideas. I think this is a great way to understand this debate. Indeed. Yeah. The Lord of Grand Secretary pretty much represents a statist or the state's point of view, right? The state wants to expand, it wants to control everything, wants to be more efficient, more manipulative, right? So it needs more money, okay? No matter it's for national security, for war, for other projects, you know, to handling of national disasters or whatever, right? But I mean, despite all these excuses, the state, I mean, all these Chinese emperors live pretty extravagant life, especially Emperor Wu Di would spend like, you know, tons and tons of gold just to build a palace, build something, you know, a project that he want to enjoy for his personal pleasure. And there is no checks and balances, okay? There's hardly anyone that can limit his power. But when the state runs out of money, the states just use all these legalist ideas to try to monopolize the markets, okay? Try to monopolize the markets. And in this case, the Confucian literati, they represent people's voice. Yeah, I think this is most just like you guys said, Confucian scholars, they represent the interest of the people. Okay, that means they believe that if the state takes more from the society, then it's gonna be a loss of the people. Okay, and this is not the right thing to do. This is not the kind of righteousness or or benevolence that Confucius was talking about. Okay, state rulers should not do this. Should not do this. They should not compete with its own people for profit. But what's interesting here is that although the Lord Grand Secretary represents legalist ideas, but this kind of legalism represented by the Lord of the Grand Secretary is a little bit different from Lord of Shang. How is it different? How is the Lord of Grand Secretary's version of legalism different from Lord of Shang? We read Lord of Shang, right? So, I mean, this could be a perfect final project questions. Difference between, I mean, you have read a Lord of Shang's book. You have read the Lord of Grand Secretary's speeches. You can compare them. What is the difference? Anyone? We're talking about the evolution of legalism. Adriana.
I think, and I don't know if I'm right, but the Lord of Shang's legalism was more to punish the person to benefit the government, and wasn't really focused on like how it wasn't really focused on like more governmental, like down to brass tack stuff. It was more like how can the people work on it. And I feel like this secretary, I feel like theirs was more like governmental, like here's policies that are put in place that are purely like to benefit us.
Yeah. That is a difference. You're right. Yeah, thank you, Adriana. Good point. But is there any other differences? Think about that, especially the attitudes towards commerce. Think about the attitudes towards commerce. How did both Han Feizi and the Lord of Shang look at commerce? Anyone? Anyone remember? Did the Lord of Shang and Han Feizi, did they encourage commerce or commercial activities? Businessman? Dustin?
If I remember, they really despised merchants and whatnot. They didn't like them at all. Exactly.
Yeah, both the Lord of Shang and Han Feizi, they despised the merchants. Yeah, Han Feizi even said merchants are, merchants, scholars, and knight errants.
Didn't they call them like con men?
Yeah, the five vermin, the five vermin.
Yeah,
they're pests. They're pests. Okay, they're like rats, and then the flies, all these pests. Okay, they should be getting rid of. A ruler should get rid of them. But now, when it comes down to Han Dynasty, with the Grand Secretary, does Grand Secretary want to eliminate all markets and all commerce?
No, because it benefits the government now.
Exactly. See, now you see the evolution of legalism now. Okay? So the new version of legalism under Han Dynasty is that no, the state doesn't want to get rid of commerce totally. But instead, they want to manipulate commerce. They want to take advantage of commerce and markets. But they still don't want any competition on the market. They want a state to be the only player, only businessman in the market. All the other businessmen, private companies are all out. Nobody can compete with the state. The state is the only company that makes money on salt and iron and alcohol, which is the most lucrative sectors, right? Think about alcohol industry, how lucrative it is, right? Very profitable, right? Think about all these, modern socialist states. They're all like that. Yeah. So now you can understand, starting from 1978, China has gone through a very important transformation. That is from Maoist style of, communism, when there was no market, under Mao before 1976, there was no market. Okay, no private property. You cannot own any private properties. It's illegal. If you own private, I don't know, if you have a lot of private properties, and then make try to trade on market. There was only black market under Mao. You're in prison. Okay, you're in prison. You violate the law. You're in prison. It's that kind of a legalism. Okay, but after Mao passed away in 1976, 2 years after, a new leader called Deng Xiaoping rose to power, and he embraced the market. Okay, and then he allowed people to trade and do businesses, trade on the market, and he opened up China, and he welcomed the capitalism, foreign investments and everything. But even under Deng, since 1978, the most lucrative, profitable sectors of economy are still under perfect control of the state. Yeah, for example, alcohol, yeah, and tobacco, right? Transportation, right? All these very important sectors and very lucrative, and also mining, all these sectors are still monopolized by the state. No other players can compete with the state. For example, tobacco, and some alcohol industries today is still government run in China. Okay, so in this sense, today's PRC, People's Republic Chinese government, is not so much different from Han Dynasty. Okay, they're still using the socialism or state capitalism to monopolize the most lucrative economic sectors to make money for the state. And the argument is exactly the same, like Lord Grand Secretary, national security, national defense, public services, and mitigation of the natural disasters. All these are excuses made by the state to justify why they still have to monopolize the most lucrative parts of markets. So now you understand that legalists, they don't have to always hate market. They can love market. They really love market, because the market is a new way to make more money for them, as long as you have a monopoly. Does that make sense? So as long as you nationalize the most profitable economic sectors. So in other words, this debate, to what degree the state should have socialism or state capitalism to monopolize or control the market, is a lasting, enduring question that not only ancient Chinese people ask, but also today's Chinese and many other non-Chinese people in 21st century. They're still asking the same question. So think about it. There's some very enduring theme in history that is always lingering lingering there, from 2,000 years ago all the way up to today. Yeah, we're covering this topic very quickly. So this basically we have covered almost all we have to cover. Any questions, comments about this topic, this debate in the Han Dynasty? Okay, so if no other questions and comments, we're gonna end up our today's lecture here. This is our last lecture. Thank you very much for sharing with us this journey or adventure into ancient Chinese history. We have covered more than 1,500 years of history in one semester. Okay, there's a lot more we have not covered yet, like Buddhism and many other things that came to China later than this time. But you have examined the core of the Chinese civilization. There are many topics we discussed over the semester. But one thing I wanna reiterate, I wanna repeat is that don't think of there is one single character for ancient China. Ancient Chinese civilization is as complex as any modern civilization. Okay, in the case that almost everything we see there is a hybrid and is always evolving. So, many people today, when they know a little bit about China, they would say, hey, look at China, Confucianism is at the core culture, is at the core, it's civilization. Well, yes and no. right? Yes and no. Well, if you look at the public ideology or propaganda, yes, Confucianism is what everybody talk about, but underneath its skin, right? You see all these different competing ideas, philosophies, intellectual trends going on. Taoism, legalism, right? All these many different things they're going on. And even within Confucianism itself, we see that not only Chinese civilization is a hybrid, but also Confucianism itself is also a hybrid. There are many different, trends within what we call Confucianism. There are Confucius, there's a Mencius, there's a Xunzi, there's a literati, Han period, the literati scholars who are more like a liberal scholars, right? They're making arguments similar to Adam Smith. This is something that is missing in Confucius and Mencius, right? So maybe one of you can compare the Han Dynasty Confucian scholars, literati. How are they different from earlier Confucian scholars like Mencius or Confucius? That would be a very interesting topic as well. So my point is that think of it's all these labels like China, Confucianism, legalism. All these are labels later historians created to make sense of the past. But these terms, these jargons, these notions, these concepts, they're arbitrary. Okay, they may or may not really fit the historical reality that really happened there. Okay, so it's a compromise. Taking a Taoist point of view, all these names are compromised. So take these names or concepts as just hybrid that is constantly evolving. Traditions are always constantly being invented, reinvented, okay, and then reinterpreted again and again and again and again in time. So that's a particular point of view. That's a particular framework of how historians make sense of the past. We don't think a tradition or history is never changing. Okay, actually, traditions are always changing. Just like all these so-called Confucianism, Taoism, they're always evolving, and there's a lot of inner conflicts within their tradition, right? The same thing also can be said about Christianity, about American civilization, about I don't know, Islam, about anything, capitalism, anything, right? Any Buddhism, any isms. So think of the past from this point of view, from this perspective. Traditions are always being reinvented. So this will end up our lecture. Thank you very much.